we saw The Mandalorian season 2, episode 1. So, just your reaction. Well, what do you what was your reaction watching that?
All right. So if we're going to get a season 2 of anything, right, you kind of want us to see the best possible scenario. And you can't go wrong with placing this on Tatooine. I mean, it's classic. It's how Star Wars began. It's what we know. So bringing us back there to me is a smart move. That's just brilliant on their part. I just love that idea of let's just bring it back to basics, back to what everybody loves. And let's explore a planet that we, to be honest, don't know that much about.
Yeah, I liked something you had mentioned in a previous conversation was it felt like an old school Western. Like that place he goes into is essentially a saloon that he's
Exactly.
walking in. So that was a really cool feel. And for me, the crate dragon was absolutely one of the highlights of that episode. That creature looked so unbelievably cool.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Disney's obviously spending a fortune on this show, and the evidence is right there. The Krayt Dragon looked amazing of the same scale of anything I saw in Game of Thrones, if not a little bit better, if I dare say so. And to finally see a Krayt Dragon in full action, not just the skeleton, not just a Star Wars Rebel rendition of it, where it looks a little cute and it's kind of running around. To really see why they make mention of this thing so many times. And it's never really ever had any kind of, first of all, no screen presence. And in any book I've read, it's really only mentioned. They really never battled one. Only thing is stay away from it.
Yeah.
And now we know why. Now we know exactly why you want to stay away from that.
It was so cool. My only thing was when they were talking about, how do you kill a Krayt Dragon? I was like, well, I know how to kill a Krayt Dragon because I've seen Tremors. You just exactly. Stick a dynamite and then let it take it down. But it was even with that, knowing kind of how it would end in advance, it was so cool. The special effects were so cool. And dude, the tuskenraiders, the sandpeople.
Forget about it. It's just, to be honest, to first off, finally see them as real people was a treat. Instead of just these annoying a-holes who just keep ruining everything, right? To see them, and you kind of almost feel a little bit like sympathetic for them, finding out that like they're basically the current, our Native Americans. They've just been raped of their land and kicked out of everywhere, and everyone who sees them just shoots at them, and you find out that, they're actually somewhat reasonable if you talk to them and if you deal with them on their level. They're kind of, and they're friendly and generous. They're giving you this weird, disgusting looking drink that has smoke coming out of it and all kinds of things, where it was a really nice treat. And to see that, first off, Mando just keeps surprising us left and right.
Yes.
He speaks Tusken Raider. I mean, who expected that?
That was amazing.
Yeah, I just a complete shock and a pleasant shock too. And this episode, if I had to rate it, I honestly would give it a 9.8 out of 10. And the only reason I give it a 9.8 is because it didn't progress the Baby Yoda storyline that much. But I wasn't disappointed by that at all. I don't mind being strung along if they're going to keep doing it to me this way.
Yeah, I don't. You know what it is? When the story is so solid and all the actors are so good and the adventure is so much fun, you don't really want it to end. It's like never get to the climax of Baby Yoda.
I'm fine with it. Just keep stringing me along. I'm okay with it. Just keep giving me more of this and I'm happy. I don't want to see an ending.
Exactly.
You could take 8 seasons to find out where Baby Yoda's from. I'm fine with it. But that speaks volumes of the quality of this show.
I think I would be really looking forward to maybe the season finale of this, where where are we gonna find this native people on some random planet that is really good in sand in desert terrain, and the sand people chant from the Mandalorian just goes bananas, and you're like, yes, now we're gonna round up the Tusken Raiders to actually work with other races and stuff. Well, who knows where this could go?
Yeah, it's just, and this is the beauty of Star Wars in general. There's so much content and there's so many characters that weren't nearly fleshed out enough in the movies. And this show gives you the opportunity to flush these characters out for the first time.
You know what's funny? Baby Yoda's first words could be and that was like the best part of that episode, where the lone Tusken Raider has to draw out the Great Dragon, and you're like, oh, how's he going to do this? And he makes that classic chant or the classic scream, and I'm watching there. My wife turns to me, she's like, is he going to run? Like, when's he actually going to run? And then he runs like a little too late and gets caught. Oh man, it was so
fun. They just continue to surprise us in pleasant ways, and introducing, actually not even introducing, because we've seen Tusken Raiders plenty of times, but to flush out who they are finally. I mean, the closest we've ever gotten was Attack of the Clones, where Anakin goes all ape shit and starts mutilating them all.
Yeah.
But we don't really get to see a Tusken Raider behave the way they're supposed to behave. We just see more of the stereotype of stuff.
And it's got to be a super stereotype, because Anakin tells Padme, "Oh, I killed the women and the children," and she just falls madly in love with him.
Yeah, okay.
Like right away.
She's looking at him with those eyes, like, you're so cool. Yeah. Well, listen, I won't go into how ridiculous the dialogue in those movies are, but to bring it back to Tatooine, show us Tusken Raiders and give them actual emotions, and you could see, even though we can't understand what they're saying because it's all grunts and hand gestures, but you could see it in their body language and the tone of the way they're speaking. So It was really cool to be able to see that and feel it for the first time, which I thought was awesome. To me, they became a really liked character all of a sudden, whereas in the past I've just kind of ignored them. They put them up there just below Jawas. I don't really think about them all that much. And season 2, episode 1 of Mandalorian did a great job of really introducing these characters and making you feel for them. You connected with them for the first time.
The attention to detail is what the diehard Star Wars fans absolutely crave. It's like, no, I want to know exactly how a lightsaber is put together. I want to see all the parts, all the blueprints. I want to, all that stuff. We crave that information. So them diving into that stuff and just giving us, not necessarily going to new planets, but just exploring the details of the places we already know.
Yeah, just flushing it out, and that they couldn't do that in the movies, or refuse to, whichever you want to take. It's just the ability, and this is why, and I've said it before, and it might be looked down upon, but Star Wars works really well, if not better, as a series versus a movie. Within a movie, you have to get a start, middle, and ending. You have to finish that movie. Whereas the show can string you along for 4 episodes to flesh something out because they really want to build up that character or build up that adventure. The movie has to wrap it up, and then you got to wait 3 years for a new one. Versus, they'll just wait till Friday. We'll get some more.
Yeah, exactly. I think that may have been the biggest miss by Star Wars in the last number of years, was whatever you think of Rise of Skywalker. I thought was
it there.
the abomination of the century. But if you were on the planning committee and you wanted to really just maximize revenue, wouldn't you release, say, The Last Jedi and then just do a series? Disney Plus they knew was coming out, or had already come out when Rise of Skywalker was released in production. And why not just have a TV show? String us along for 2 years and then give us the big, like, movie finale.
I think about that every once in a while, and I don't know for sure, of course. I don't think anybody will. But it kind of, and we've talked about this in the past. It just feels like they wanted to wrap up the whole Skywalker line and say, look, we're done with this. We gave you fans the movies because you asked for it. We have other plans for Star Wars. We have other directions we want to go. Here's what we came up with. Just take it and do what you want with it. We're moving on after this.
Yeah, never mind that it doesn't make any.
Yeah, forget that we a million loopholes and we really think about that part. Oh yeah, right. I forgot about that. All of that they don't care about. I think it was just give us something. Here, shut up. You got your ending. You waited your 40 years for it. You got it. It's over. Now we have some really cool stuff that we've been working on.
Yeah, like The Mandalorian has not needed a book or novelization so far that is specifically intended to close loopholes.
Exactly. And that just tells you right there, it's perfect. You don't need further explanation.
Yeah. Now let me ask you this. In this episode, we saw the return of Boba Fett's armor.
Yes.
And this may be a controversial statement, but for me, that moment when he shoots the missile out of that back portion of his suit was, I think, the coolest thing Boba Fett's armor has ever been a part of. Like, I'm sorry,
yes,
but getting
absolutely
killed in Return of the Jedi and throwing out like one cool wrist cable does not beat this awesome rocket launcher thing.
Exactly. Now, and again, it's Boba Fett originally was never intended to be a major character. He became a fan favorite and it exploded from there. And it's the same thing of why Darth Maul has come back in reiterations in the animated series. And, we'll see, because they realized, man, we killed off a really good character and we should have thought about that before we decided to kill him off. So let's just bring him back. That's an easy answer. We'll figure a way to bring him back. That's what writers do, come up with miracles and all of a sudden someone's not dead.
It's a very, and this, I'm going to mention two things that do not sound like they're connected, but it's a very General Hospital, like One Life to Live kind of
course.
thing. But like comic book
soap opera.
Right? Oh, well, that's the evil twins. Didn't you know that Darth Maul had this evil twin this whole time? Or, oh, this person's brought back from the dead. They didn't really die. It does concern me. Don't get me wrong. I like seeing the return of amazing characters like Darth Maul, but it does make me concerned for the long-term health where you can't take death seriously. And for the long term, I'm wondering if that cheapens the storylines, over the long haul.
I think in general, I agree with you. It does. But you got two amazing characters in Darth Maul and Boba Fett, and you just to let them die off in such a fashion is it's an injustice to the character. Darth Maul had maybe about 6 lines in the entire movie. I have to go back and actually check, but
yeah, maybe Boba Fett had like half of that.
Yeah, and then he just dies, and you never hear about him again, and it's just over. And I'm sorry, but he's basically the first Sith we've seen since Vader, and he was designed so beautifully.
True.
And he moved so well that you wanted more of him. You didn't want to see him die. No. So it was more of a shock. And then you take Boba Fett, who really was just background character. He was meant to be minor character. You're not going to think about it. He doesn't progress their storyline much, and then they kill him off really fast. But they did leave that open-ended. They did say, if you remember C-3PO talking about how you will die slowly, being digested over 1,000 years, right? So it doesn't mean that you're chewed up as you fall into a sarlacc. It doesn't mean, it means you're going to sit in his stomach acid for 1,000 years, and you're either going to die of thirst or hunger before you get the hell out of there.
Yeah, it doesn't kill you the same way a Rancor kills you.
Exactly. You're not being mauled, basically. It's so, and then when you think about it, right, it makes perfect sense that he wouldn't have died immediately in there, right? So, okay, we know it's going to take 1,000 years to digest you. So it's a very slow acting acid, right? The point is you can't get out, which is what the Sarlacc has. It keeps you in there, all right? Now, think going forward with that, okay, we don't see what happens after Jabba's yacht blows up, right? It's done. They leave, they move on. Jabba's story's over. Any of those characters, they're done. So you're left with this feeling of, well, I wonder if Boba got out of there, right? And now there's been books where they explain that, and that's all in the Legacy series and the comics. I will talk about that. But, you know, as far as the films go, it's over for Boba. We don't see him in any of the other movies. He's just done, right?
Yeah.
Now, you fast forward to The Mandalorian Season 2, Episode 1. We find out that, yes, you can go into a crate dragon, right? And and what do we know? We learn crate dragons spew vomit acid. I mean, which is cool as shit, but we didn't know that, right? And then when Mando comes out, and spoiler alert, yes, Mando survives going into the crate dragon. When he comes out, he's dripping of this stuff, right? So this acid obviously doesn't eat through Beskar.
Yes.
Right? So if you think about it, if acid, which was, we just witnessed it dissolve people and creatures left and right, doesn't dissolve Beskar, so it means he can survive in that, which means that Boba had more time in the Sarlacc stomach being able to survive without being affected.
Interesting. I hadn't put that together. That's, wow. I hadn't put that together. That's really interesting. Wow.
Yeah. So now there is a little caveat to that. Apparently, there's been mention, and I have to double check this, but Boba's armor is not made out of Beskar; it was made out of Durasteel.
Okay, and it doesn't cover him the same way it covers Mando.
Exactly. And they're all different because they're customizable, but it wasn't Beskar. Now we can argue that it wasn't, you know, I have read that it wasn't, it was made out of Durasteel, but then again, there's books, and if we have to stick to canon,
which does not,
which doesn't help the situation.
There's no such thing as canon. Canon is the fakest news.
So it undoes all the previous writings in the Legacy series, right? Which I spent 1 billion hours reading. But it does help this storyline as to how Boba could have survived. And
that makes sense. And look, quick tangent, just to expand on the canon issue. You know my thoughts, which is, just because Charles Soule happens to be writing a Star Wars comic right now doesn't make everything he writes canon by magic.
Exactly.
He's like, you know, been knighted to be that guy necessarily. You know, I don't even think George Lucas has all to say in what canon is, because I remember Han shooting first. And if you ask George who shot first, he would tell you Greedo. So I call bullshit right now. Okay. So even George Lucas to me doesn't get to define what canon is. For me, it's what are the coolest stories you can tell that keeps the universe of Star Wars the most consistent. And for me, that's why we always talk about canon. I think a lot of fans get into this because they want to enjoy everything they're seeing. So they have to play.
They have to rationalize it.
It
makes sense.
They're like trying to figure out the Rubik's Cube of how this stuff can make sense in their minds and what they can like really go all in on, so that they can enjoy just going through the movies and the shows and all that. But, you know.
So listen, we have to, as human beings, we're logical. We have to make sense of what we're seeing.
Yeah.
And we need a reason why. So we create that reason really quickly. So the canon exists for that stupid reason, right? So that we can rationalize why he exists, why he escaped, and why he's alive. We need to know. And that's the biggest problem we have. And unfortunately, there's too many loopholes with this.
Yeah, you know, it's like Gospels. You know, you got the 4 different stories. Like, well, this is the Gospel according to George. This is the Gospel according to JJ.
Exactly. Right. It's been handed out too many times, and people have done what they wanted with it. So it's a little confusing. But you know, sticking with the Mandalorian, it kind of starts to answer a lot of things for you, right? And you know, they do it subtly, but you know, when Marshall and Mando are having that conversation about that used to be a Sarlacc pit, he goes, "What do you mean used to?" He goes, and we find out that a crate dragon can eat a sarlacc. Well, how,
That's
you know,
insane.
I mean, that first of all
no such
speaks
thing as
to
a
how
man in
badass
size.
a crate dragon is. But you know, it's pretty cool because then you got to think about, hey, maybe that's how Boba escaped. Maybe he couldn't get out, and all of a sudden comes along this crate dragon and his wonderful acid and starts eating the crap out of the sarlacc and creates an opening for him to escape. And maybe during that, you know, who? And again, I'm speculating a ton because I don't know yet. But
Hey,
you know,
look,
maybe he got
what makes
horribly
other
injured during.
people what I don't see what makes other people more qualified to write this stuff than you or me.
Well,
Exactly.
I'd like to thank myself for that, you know, but I'm just a fan who really cares, and that's really all it is. And then, you know, there's plenty of us out there. You're one of them. I mean, they're everywhere. We care. We really do care, and we've spent more hours watching it than the creators have, and I'm positive of that.
Yes.
So we've actually come up with more storylines that can make more sense than the stuff they've been giving us.
Correct.
You can fill in those gaps better.
And I think that's what makes The Mandalorian so special, is because you watch it and it's very clear this is made by people who really get what Star Wars is really all about. Yes. They understand what makes it awesome and are real big fans themselves.
Yeah, and that's just where, when something becomes as grand as Star Wars, you have to give it over to the ones who care about it. Because it's not just about the money. And yes, it is a business. I get they need to make their money, but you'll make more money by giving it over to the people who care, because they'll do it justice, in which case then now all of a sudden everyone agrees.
Well, I think it's because the people who really care understand it is an art form, and of what makes it so special. You can't just check a bunch of boxes or tick off a bunch of boxes. Oh yeah, we gotta have a Jedi, we gotta have a Sith. You know what? Mandalorian barely has any of the supernatural type elements of Star Wars that you
very little of it.
The first thing you think of. But I think one of the reasons especially the first Star Wars movie worked so well is you have these mystical elements in a very grounded reality. Everything looks, I mean, it looks dated now, but it's like, yeah, there's 1970s buttons and levers you got to pull, and yeah, sometimes you got to kick this thing in order to get the Millennium Falcon's hyperdrive to work. There's nothing sleek and shiny about it.
Well, because you know, when you think about it, right? It is a galaxy far, far away, and it was a long, long time ago, right? So things shouldn't be very new. Yes, their technology is more advanced than ours, but it shouldn't. Nothing is new. You know, the Millennium Falcon's old when we first see it. It's broken down. It's been repaired 1 billion times. You know, so that's what makes things more authentic. You know, if everything is shiny and new, a la episodes 1, 2, and 3, you lose a connection with it. Well, there's no connection to that starship. It doesn't mean anything to anyone. It's brand new. It doesn't
feel real.
You need that broken in feel of, yeah, we've been through a lot. This baby and me, we've been together for a long time. You know, you need that. And you know, when you look at the Mandalorian, you get that same feeling.
Yeah, I think the Jawas have shown up several times now, and it kind of, I don't like them constantly going back to Tatooine, because I feel like there's a whole, at the same time, because there's also like a whole galaxy to explore. There's got to be more than like 2 planets. Okay, like I'm pretty sure there's more than 2 planets. But at the same time, it's undeniable that, you know, when you have like Jawas kind of showing up every now and then, it keeps it so grounded. Hey, yeah, these are a bunch of just scavengers just trying to survive and just trading. It's very, I don't know, it keeps it very grounded, and it makes it very real. You can see yourself being there in a way you can't when everything's just kind of shiny and new, because it doesn't feel real.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree. But, you know, and you know, again, I go back to, and you know, we'll have more time for this in another segment where we can go into all the Easter eggs that are shown throughout this episode, and there's plenty of them, because it really does flesh out what the possibilities of the future of the show is, and you know, gives us more insight into where the story's going. So we will definitely have time to talk about that. But I definitely, it's an A+ for me. The show was awesome. It was the best thing about Friday night for me. And to watch my kids see it and be that captivated by the awesomeness of a crate dragon was cool enough for me, and made me feel like I was 8 and 9 years old again watching
Yeah,
that.
2020 really needed something really good to come out of it.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
badly.
This was desperately needed. and you know what? Now I'm looking forward to Fridays again. I'm looking, it's not just me stuck at home now. I want to be stuck at home so I can watch The
Yeah,
Mandalorian.
exactly.
So yeah, I agree. I think it's much needed today in today's environment, and we need this. But it also sets up and shows that Star Wars doesn't have to be what we have been given. It
Yes.
can be so much more. And I'm looking forward to the project of Kenobi, the Disney Plus series that's supposedly coming. Don't have a lot of details on that yet, but it flushes out storylines in the past. And Mandalorian, if you think about it, takes place before Force Awakening. It's about 5 years after Return of the Jedi. So Luke is still alive. Luke is looking for Jedi, right? And are we going to have something where it crosses paths? Because he's looking for where Amando's looking for Baby Yoda's home planet, or at least his people.
Yes.
And as far as we know, there's really only one Jedi available, and that's Luke.
Yeah.
And Luke would be around 27, 28 right at this point in the show.
That makes sense. Yes,
Right?
that sounds right.
I believe if I'm correct, I think he was 23 in Return of the Jedi.
That sounds right.
So if we're talking about 5-6 years later, so let's put him close to 30 at this point, which means his force powers would have grown significantly. And he's actively in the storyline, in the timelines. He's searching right now for force sensitive beings so that he can recreate the Jedi Order. So is there going to be some crossover with this? Mando just happens to have this really powerful Baby Yoda who can wield the Force, and Luke is looking for force sensitive creatures. So there's a possibility there where, there might be a tie-in, which is really an awesome idea. I think that's a good possibility of that happening.
Yeah, that would be a legit fangasm.
Oh,
if that,
I'm going on a tangent
if that
here.
actually happened.
This all conjecture. I have nothing to back this up. This is my fandom running amok. But then you can also go and I've heard this already, where it's possible that Baby Yoda is a clone.
Yeah, that it makes sense to me. And honestly, if you remember, the Mandalorian first season came out right before Rise of Skywalker. So I thought they were going to tie those in. To me, the better explanation for why Rey would be super powerful as opposed to her just being, the granddaughter slash
the clone of the
daughter of the Emperor is, Baby Yoda steroids. That could explain a lot. like just she's like 6 months old and she just gets a green vial jabbed into her neck and it's like, oh yeah, I could just lift rocks.
Yeah, I mean, again, there's so many possibilities. And looking at Boba's a clone, right? So we've already established on the Mandalorian there are clones. So there's an opportunity there. And also, why was the Empire looking, or the remnants of the Empire looking for him so badly? Was he a project? We don't know.
Yeah, I almost hope they don't answer this question. Sci-fi is a weird genre a lot of times where, when you see, and I'd also put horror in this category. Sometimes when you see the creature and you really understand the backstory, it's like, it ruins it now.
Yeah,
it does take away the mystery.
It takes the mystery away, and then if it's not an explanation you really like, it ruins the entire character for you. I agree, but again, there's so many possibilities with this show that they haven't even touched on yet. They're giving us small glimpses and letting our imaginations just run wild with it. That keeps you hooked and keeps you coming back, and that's what a good show does. It keeps you coming back because you want to see if your theory is proven correct or not.
Yeah, exactly. And let it never end. You know,
exactly. Just
some
keep
people
it
would be fine if Game of Thrones season 8 didn't happen. It's like, no, just end at the first 7. Let our imaginations take over.
Yeah, we're pretty good. I can imagine the rest of this. We're good.
Yeah.
But yeah. So yeah, again, I give them total credit. They haven't let me down yet. The show is fantastic. I look forward to more of it. I believe it's signed for 5 seasons, and
Awesome.
which is great. I would love more, but again, let's let it run its course and see where it goes from there.
Yeah, I'm excited, man.
And how it's going to tie the rest of the universe of Star Wars together, because there's a lot there.
Yeah, I'm really excited. Like you said, I got something important to do on Fridays now.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but with that said, I got to kind of call it quits here.
Yep. But
Let's try to pick up again next week.
Absolutely. For those who watch, please hit subscribe. We will catch you next time.
All right, guys.